My name is Andrew.
Hey, Andrew.
I'm Calix, and let's talk fear. So, um, some terms might get a bit technical, so I'm gonna cover them before we start. We're gonna look after why some people like being scared, what makes a game survival horror, the genesis of horror video games from text adventures to the current age, survival horror weaponry, why in games where there is combat, the choices of weapons are rarely an accident, what makes a good survival horror protagonist. So, how do you know if you're playing a survival horror game? Does anyone have any ideas?
There's a scarcity of items.
That's right. Conservation of items is extremely important. That's the survival part.
Batman?
Yes. There is always a sense of dread. The thing about, I think what really, the foundation of fear is just the unknown, not knowing. And it's like something, there's always this possibility, like Murphy's Law, if it can go wrong.
And anything that can go wrong will go wrong. In survival horror, that tends to be the case. Weak or under-equipped protagonist. Emphasis on scaring the player. And this is a big part of it because, like a horror film, for whatever other horror-like qualities that other games may have, if the emphasis is not on scaring the player, being frightening for the player, it rarely, it's hard for it to slip into that category.
It's actually, I was going to say that better. An emphasis on terror, because terror comes before horror. Horror becomes after. Terror is the build-up.
Well, we're going to talk about what the word horror means. Horrible and horrifying situations. So, it's designed to be unpleasant to a certain degree. It's going to be, very, very viscerally unpleasant a lot of the time. So you'll find yourself going through places like sewers and warehouses and other places that you wouldn't in real life really want to go. Gore or the grotesque. This is an interesting one. Pitiful but horrible, standing on the line between fear and empathy. So, the grotesque it's like when something is on the border of being recognizable, but is twisted or broken in some way. So, in ages past, people with physical disabilities were seen as strange or odd or uncomfortable to look at, and so they were pushed aside.
Just from a psychological point of view, is it that then that the true horror game has the world itself and various characters reflect the entire grotesqueness of the situation, in so much as the horrible creatures that the protagonist encounters are just a reflection of the larger world itself.
That's right. It's part of a greater thing about, why we would be drawn to something that is unpleasant. So when it says pitiful and empathetic, it creates it's a particular kind of discomfort that comes from something that you're disgusted by, but you are also feel instinctive need to look down on it and protect it. So, for instance, in Silent Hill 2, the first enemy you encounter is called Lying Figure. It's has pallid flesh. It's seems to be twisted up on itself, and its movements are strange and twisting. And as a result, you know, we know it's something we're supposed to be afraid of. We know it's supposed to be scary, but at the same time, you can't help but feel a little sorry for it. Like it seems to be in even more discomfort than the player is, and you feel almost bad smashing them down because they look so humanoid, but just a little off, and that's kind of where the grotesque comes in.
Not in a situation if it's either you or them.
Right. It's the survival thing again. You know, survival of the fittest in this case, built around atmosphere and creating dread. So that was pretty self-explanatory. Slow building and often uncomfortable to play, or otherwise a different priority of fun than most games. So basically, like, there's a certain line that you have to ride, but I think we've all played a horror game that was, you know, that was still sort of grim and uncomfortable, but also fun to play. So for instance, Dead Space. Dead Space tried to make combat fun while still leaving the monsters scary. And it's debatable as to whether or not they succeeded. You know, but they put a lot of work in to create that balance.
I mean, they help take away the fear by making their laser saw where you can just like cut their limbs off and dissect them as they're walking towards you. That was kind of fun.
Yeah, and that's the only way you can kill them.
Terms we will be covering. Fourth wall. Can anyone tell me what the fourth wall is?
Sunglasses.
Yeah, it's when somebody like some kind of like video game or story starts speaking to the reader or the viewer or whatever.
Basically, it means like if you're like when you're watching a show, let's say a live action show, there's the three walls, you know, the left wall, the right wall, and the backdrop. The fourth wall would be the wall that you can't see because that's where the camera is. It's the side of the action that is where the audience sits in live action theater. So the fourth wall, when somebody breaks the fourth wall, it means that they have in some way hampered that barrier, made it like this, like you say, the characters are now interacting with the audience. So now it changes the way the story reads.
Deadpool
what's
is
that?
the most notorious example of that.
Deadpool is notorious for breaking the fourth wall.
Yes.
Shakespeare does it all the time in Greek tragedies with the chorus.
Yeah, or Looney Tunes, when they talk to the
Oh,
audience.
yes. Again, following the,
Yeah, you're right.
in the path of Shakespeare, Greek chorus.
In ancient Kabuki theater, they used they used the stagehands. People were not used to they've gotten used to just ignoring them. All of a sudden, one of the stagehands jumps out and pulls out a sword, and he's one of the actors as of the play now. And that's one of the ways we have our modern ninja. That's the characters they were supposed to represent. First and third person. So this is referring to camera positions. Who can tell me what a first-person camera is? Purple shirt.
Like you'd be seeing it through the character's eyes.
Yes. It's a one-to-one view through the character's eyes. What about third person? Third person camera? Oh, you in the brown?
Literally the most annoying camera angle ever because it will swing around rapidly unless you can control it yourself. But it's a camera that's like behind or follows the
Luckily, most survival horror games map the camera control to one of the other thumbsticks, so that you have at least some degree of control, so it isn't completely swinging wildly around. But some games don't. Tank control.
Destiny's
So, another one of the, so as you can see, fixed camera, I made it so that would appear first. when you have what they call a fixed camera, what that means is the camera isn't necessarily linked to the character in the game. So you can have a camera almost like it was mounted on a wall, like secure, like you were watching security footage. Silent Hill 1 in particular had a sequence right at the beginning of the game where as you run down an alleyway, the camera changes positions multiple times from strange angles to make you feel off kilter, like something otherworldly is going on.
2 has that weird one from the ceiling too.
The ceiling?
There's one when you're in Pyramid Head's like lair. There's like a weird, one of the rooms has like a weird angle from the ceiling.
Oh, I think, okay. Are you thinking of the room at the bottom of the labyrinth?
Yeah, I think so. I don't like it.
It makes you feel uncomfortable, it makes you feel weird. But tank controls are when a character, and it's not limited to survival horror games, it's when a character turns left or like slowly left or right, and then you move them in that direction. So like a tank would move, turns left, turns right, and then heads straight forward.
Up is forward.
That's right. You have to kind of hold, if it's a thumbstick, you have to hold the thumbstick forward, but then also when the camera changes positions, it means that you don't lose control of the direction you're running in if the camera suddenly switches positions.
I was just gonna say that's the defense of that, is that when you change camera, because no, Devil May Cry 3 tried that, up is forward, no, up is going that way, back is going this way, then right and left. But then when the camera angle changes, that all goes backwards, based on where it's at. So
one of the games that was actually really confusing was Resident Evil 4, where it was like a fixed camera where one was going up, down, left, and right, and you had to go opposite ways to do so.
Wait,
well,
4 was
okay.
over the camera.
I was gonna say that would be a third-person camera, but then I remembered there are parts in that game where it is a fixed camera, and it like out of nowhere, it's very confusing. I'm trying to remember exactly when that occurs.
Most of it's over the shoulder, because that's what really.
What they call over the shoulders.
That's what
also
really
third
pioneers.
person.
Yeah.
New Game
over the shoulder shooters.
The New Game Plus. Pretty much everyone knows what New Game Plus is.
Oh.
It is when, after completing a game once, you play through the game a second time, and certain things are different. You may have an extra weapon. You may have an extra. In a game with multiple endings, you may have a chance for a different ending, and it means that you may have just certain options, or even just extra little fun things from the developers that you didn't have before. So, in a game with like a leveling up system, you might be able to keep that level up when you go back to the game a second time. And maybe the enemies will be stronger accordingly. Alternate ending. Again, pretty self-explanatory. That some games, quite a few of the games we're talking about on this list, have more than one ending that will change based on the choices of the player.
I choose the wrong one.
Third-person camera.
Bad photo.
As you can see.
Bad game.
Is it even considered a game?
It's an experience.
It's
It's a lifestyle choice.
It's a jam
Soft
coming.
spot for Silent Hill, and
Still a game.
yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's definitely one of the worst of the series. That said,
I'm not here to pass judgment on any of the Silent Hill games.
It has a lot of
Yes,
flaws.
you are.
If anyone should hear me. And first-person camera, which was supposed to come up there, was you can see the character's hands at the bottom of the screen, because the idea is you are looking through that character's eyes.
Which that's always bothered me, because like if you're looking through the character's eyes, wouldn't you like see
Like your nose.
the nose
In like the peripheral.
or like
I don't get to see my nose looking through here.
Or the hair flowing around if you have long hair.
I mean just sitting here looking forward, I can see just the tips of my shoulders. I can see my nose, right? So you think first person. You're not just gonna see your hands
Or
floating,
like
right?
when characters have glasses, like.
Yeah, why can't you see the brim?
And like you
weird,
wade through
but-
water or it's raining or something, and there aren't like water droplets on what your glasses would be.
But you have to
That
keep
drives
in
me nuts because I just started wearing glasses. Like, how do people deal with this crap?
Yeah.
But you
know,
have to.
it's one thing to get a raindrop in your eye, but it's like now there's like this new.
Now I need my own windshield washer.
Playing a video game where your nose is visible.
That's the
because
surrounded the Bergerac.
our eyes naturally, like our nose is always in our view of both of our eyes, but our brains become tuned to ignore that, to keep the nose out.
Yes.
Also, it'd just be annoying.
Then they,
West
probably,
Nile.
then they probably have a mirror.
Think about
West Nile, of course.
how you focus.
So why do some people enjoy being scared? Now, I think it's probably a safe bet that most of us here enjoy horror and enjoy horror games. But you've probably known somebody who just doesn't like horror. They say it's just not their thing. They say it's just no fun. They don't understand why you like it.
I'm not gonna lie, everybody. Before I met my friend here, I would not touch a horror game. I would not watch a horror movie. I would not go anywhere near the horror genre.
He still has trouble because he gets scared easily.
Sometimes, thank you.
Every
but
time.
now I relish it. I sat down and watched a movie with him a couple of years ago, not knowing anything about it, thinking, why not? Let's try it. Mr. Horror here was the first one to scream, not me. I just want to point this out.
What movie
And
was
you
that?
never forgot it.
Were you sleeping?
Nope. And the movie's called The Banshee Chapter.
Yeah. That's a weird one. Horror games have spoiled me a little bit. It's harder for me to get scared by horror films, but occasionally they can still get me. But that's the idea. That's what I always hope will happen when I watch a new horror movie. Have you all heard of self-scaring?
Yeah.
It's the act of purposefully scaring yourself, or or your peers. And there are a few different reasons why we've done this. It served to help prepare early humans for potential real-life threats and how to react. We've got our fight or flight, but tales around the campfire, scaring each other with stories would sort of give us a taste of what that's like and make it so that we would be just even a little bit more prepared for what may lay out there. If we're gonna be, we have to learn how to tell at a glance what's, a Smilodon crashing through the undergrowth and what's a potential meal. Depends if you get them before they get you. Now, why have I never seen saber-toothed tigers in Dino Crisis? Never. They had 3 games. No post-Cretaceous creatures. It was a test of daring. It was almost like a competition. People will use fear to sort of assert themselves and be like, and say, I'm not afraid, to show their bravery without being in a dangerous situation to have to prove their bravery.
Almost like dominance.
Hormones. Brain chemicals can create a pleasant effect for many people, but not all. And this is for the most part, what separates people who enjoy horror and those who don't. Despite giving it tons of chances, they just can't get that enjoyment factor out of it. And the way it works is this. Our brains release dopamine when we're scared. In little amounts, but if we're biologically predisposed to it, or we've practiced, our brains can potentially release that hormone endless, as long as what we're watching is scary. So if you're going to be playing through like a 4 or 5 hour long horror game all in one sitting, well, you might be a little exhausted when you're done.
And you might want to leave the lights on whilst you're doing it.
Bonding through fear. Horror film first dates. I have not been able to find, okay, maybe not first dates. I have not been able to find the research. Like, I was trying to look it up today. So take everything I'm saying with a big grain of salt. Just a fist-sized grain.
So, I have a real live example of like people being scared. One of my oldest friends, his wife is a very prim and proper woman. She came from some of the best families in Hong Kong, and we were watching in Toronto, because I'm a Toronto boy. We were watching Aliens, the second one, right? Which is like a gigantic action horror movie. It's like almost like an encapsulated haunted house, if you think about it, right? And during one part, like a scary part, she screamed so loud, and because I don't know, maybe I was sitting on her wrong side, instead of like, grabbing at her husband, she grabbed at me, right? And I was like, and that also scared me, because Bill Holman is like, 5'9.5" and almost this wide, and incredibly muscular, like a physical contractor. So it's like, oh my gosh, Lilith, what are you doing? It's like,
Did he say your dog meat, pal?
But fortunately, Holman had a good sense of humor about it, right? But just the fact that she wasn't really, because culturally she was very inured by this, and she had like, it was almost like a completely new experience for her. So like her dopamine came rushing out in one huge, gigantic volley.
Yeah. There's. See, it's hard for me to say without the research in front of me to say, yes, this is what it is. But supposedly, there's a strong bonding connection that happens when we make it through frightening situations as human beings. And so this self-scaring is a good way to sort of keep and test those bonds, with your pack, your class, your, whether you're hunter-gatherers or art majors.
So would it be safe to say that adrenaline junkies are just on a constant dopamine rush?
That could be it. Yes, actually. If, like, thrill seekers, it doesn't have to be fear of the unknown fear. It can be regular old, I think I'm gonna die right now fear. So that's you're jumping out of a plane, you're jumping off a dam, or a waterfall, attached to something.
Jumping in a barrel and going over the falls.
Chasing after a tornado.
I don't think those boys get dopamine anymore. Just sadness.
I was going to add one more thing. Is that I think that someone pointed this out online, is that some of the horror or the appeal to the grotesque is kind of like this baser desire for humans. Like whether we want to admit it or not, we kind of have this fascination with the grotesque and the kind of the disgusting, maybe that could be.
The car accidents,
that
looky-loos.
It's kind of like, it's so fascinating. It's you can't look away, kind of thing.
Yeah.
True.
It's just plain old fun. Fun is a hard concept to compartmentalize, but
for me,
I think most of us can agree. It's fun, and oftentimes. Part of the bonding thing is the more people you involve with it, the more fun it can get.
And the more funny it can get.
But there is another thing that I want to talk about before we move on to the next slide. Another reason some people don't get the same enjoyment out of horror is because they've had hard lives. They, like, when we're children, that's the time when our brains are deciding what is a pretend threat that we can still get the thrill and enjoy, and a real threat. And our brains can become hardwired to look at something like a film as a real threat. So it's important to take your horror in moderation when you're young.
Yeah. Well, fear is not meant to be a pleasant feeling. That's the thing.
We've kind of turned it around that way.
Mm-hmm. You turned it on its head. And I guess that kind of, that's what gets the engagement in it, because, games supposed to be engaged on it, sort of interactive part is that it helps with that kind of thing.
These are some survival horror protagonists. Now, is there anything about them that stands out?
They're humans.
No, he's got a point. They're regular.
They look
They
like
are.
nobody in particular.
Yeah.
They're
exactly.
nobody important.
They're everyday guys.
Players
Everyday
sleep
guy.
watching.
They're like
Someone that you could know.
Perfect protocol.
just somebody you could see walking down the street, right?
So, what makes a good survival horror protagonist?
Average Joe. Yeah.
A common person. No or very little combat or military experience. Although, there's an exception I'll talk about in a moment.
Yeah, he doesn't count.
Eh.
I know who you're gonna bring up, and he doesn't count.
Oh, are you talking about Homecoming?
Yeah.
I can't tell you why that's a problem.
I can see
but
both.
Without
There's a
spoiling
spoiler,
part of
but it's a
that, but
problem.
just because you think you can do something doesn't mean that you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Often clumsy or un-video game-like movement. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's on purpose.
In video games, often our characters are their movements are just a little too clean, a little, think of Bayonetta. Pirouetting and twirling around is part of her regular combat attacks. But then again, her legs are probably about 11 feet long.
I was gonna say something like Mario had his jumping abilities.
Yeah.
Mario can jump 12 feet.
And he's a normal plumber.
Off a wall.
Yeah.
Like
He's a plumber.
And not to mention how hard his head is. He hits those bricks so many times.
Well, he does do
Sometimes,
this.
sometimes it looks like it's his head, and sometimes it looks like it's his fist, but he puts them both up at the same time.
Yeah, but he's a normal human being that has super jumping capabilities.
Who here has seen a video game protagonist hold themselves up onto a ledge or a solid surface from just their fingertips?
It's the worst.
It's all the time. Have you tried doing that in real life?
Yes.
It's really hard. I mean, I know how to shape, but that was really
No, it's not.
Alright,
Talk to Mario.
They can often be young. They can often be female. This is a weird thing about survival horror where women are still perceived to some degree to be weaker or more petite, and I don't think it's necessarily necessary, but they definitely make good use of the youth aspect, because a tiny little girl is someone that you can feel more afraid for than, say, Master Chief or Doomguy. Or even, what was that?
Well, if it's especially from Japanese games, they're playing up the moe factor.
Yeah.
Well, if you talk, I was gonna say part of that is the reason why it kind of appeals to real life. That's why you don't see. It's very rare for you to see females in combat scenarios because hormones. That's the thing that differentiates. It's a big difference between male and female. Like the testosterone gives men significant upper body strength, and that's
there's exceptions, but just commonly, I think that's probably my guess is that it's probably